My survival path convinces me that I am worthless, that I absolutely cannot do without these things, that I will never have that opportunity again. And so, therefore, me, in my experience, I am a beggar. I do things that I would be ashamed of because I don't think that I'm worth anything better than that.
Addiction is more than just using. Addiction is the mindset. It's the other thoughts outside of use that really keep us in some level of bondage, or it's a continuum, right?
Mindfulness for me is huge because it allows for me to stay grounded in the present moment. And that short circuits the anxiety of what is happening, and it short circuits the depression of what has happened.
My take on what I hear is that recovery requires a community. It requires a village.
The fear is, if I don't get it back, I will lose it. If I don't get it back, my family won't trust me. I'll lose my job. And then I'll be back in the same situation that I started with.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Conversations with New Beginnings. I'm Teray Sturgis, and I'm so glad that you're here. This podcast is all about real conversations. Before we begin, please help us by taking a quick pre-survey. Your perspective helps shape conversations that truly uplift, empower, and transform. And be sure to stay to the end to hear another message from me. Welcome to Conversations with New Beginnings, a podcast created to uplift, empower, and transform. Today's episode is definitely one you don't want to miss. We're joined by Jesse Talion, LCSW, doctoral candidate, and a powerful voice for lived experience. His journey through substance use, recovery, and interprofessional purpose is not just inspiring, it's real, it's transparent, and it's deeply human. Jesse doesn't just talk about change. He embodies resilience, growth, and what it means to turn experience into impact. Let's dive into this conversation.
This was back in 2008. It was a couple years before I actually got like solid in recovery. Um, I was in drug diversion court, and I had an experience where I was in Salisbury, and the sales clerk at the Barnes and Noble had a little cute pin, and I thought, oh my heavens, I want this pin. And so I asked her, and she said it was in the dollar bins across the highway at Target. And so I went over to the dollar bins and I started searching the dollar bins, and I didn't find the pin. And so I searched the dollar bins and I didn't find the pin. And then I started to look over in jewelry and I checked stationery, and I went back to the dollar bins, and I went over to kids wear, and I went over to stationery, and I went back to the dollar bins. And long story short is that I went to my counselor because I had recognized the tweaky feeling. And so here I am in the dollar bins. I've been there in the store for about an hour and a half looking for a dollar pin. And I realized that I had the same feeling. And I looked at the little old lady next to me and I said, I need your help. I need you to tell me it's not here. Leave the store. I need you to tell me to leave the store. And so my counselor said to me, that's your addiction. And it was this mind-blowing moment for me because I had stopped using. I was complying with every element of the diversion court program. Where's the problem? Where's the issue? And it was the first time that I gained this understanding that addiction is more than just me using.
Yes. Yeah.
It was about something that threw my life out of balance. And so that moment branded itself for two reasons. First off, is because it gave me a new understanding of what I was up against. And secondly, because that's where my counselor gave me information that I didn't have. So I have this general sense of I can figure it out. I can solve the puzzle. I can fix this problem, whatever it is. And I can't do this by myself. So when I look at it as a professional and I've got somebody in the chair, oftentimes I look at it like there is a piece which is missing that is preventing that person from being able to solve the puzzle. And it's not about me supplying the information or giving them the answer key.
Right.
It's about helping them figure out what's that piece look like? Where can they find it? Right. And so that piece of empathy is because I was exactly there. in the chair asking my counselor, "Oh my God, what was that?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. In this field, I liken that to usually my initial conversation when I'm first meeting with someone. I'm like, look, you've got all the pieces of the puzzle. My job is to sit with you and kind of hash out. Let's throw it all on the table, right? And let's hash it out and let's start putting piece by piece together. It may not make sense. It may not even develop into the picture that we want it to be for a while. But what we need to do is to work together and take this journey because I'm sure how long were you working with your counselor?
No, that was about, it was a 16-week program. So what's that? About 4 months?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes a while. You don't get that on the first, right? You don't, and you didn't get to, because the beautiful thing about working with someone is to be able to go back and say, look, this is what happened to me. What is this? And, because in your initial conversation is that, oh, I have this addictive personality. I have these addictive ways of thinking. No one is thinking that. We just always focus on what? The substance.
Mm-hmm.
And diversion court talks about just don't use,
Yep.
right? Your probation officer, if you have one, talks about just don't use.
Yep.
Right? Your therapist, hey, yeah, we want to make sure you're on drug screens. Everything, as long as you're not using, you're good.
Compliance is
And
key.
what did you discover? It's not about that.
It was not about the using. When I stopped using, it wound up being how I substituted different behaviors.
Yes. Yeah. And in how were some of those behaviors probably were present even before the substance? Could you see that? Or was that present? I always say, sometimes we don't get to the use without there being something else. Like the behavior may be present, it just goes into the use, right? Like there are things that might be there, the thinking might be there, but it just manifests into the use, right? That then spirals into the addiction of the substance. But those addictive traits, those addictive thinking, especially when you talk about being raised in a home that has addictive traits.
I think my using was the answer to something. And so when I stop using, that something still exists. So when we look at the types of behaviors that might exhibit, we might look at ways that I am exhibiting control, things that I am afraid of losing, things that I am worried I won't get. I'm going to put in all of this effort and then it's still going to fall through my fingers. So I know for me, what wound up being left behind was this feeling of being less than. So I have really, really powerful imposter syndrome, right? So the feeling that I don't belong, that I don't qualify, that I'm not going to get through. And I think that actually reminds me of when I had passed my LCSW exam. I had passed the exam. I had studied my butt off. I went down there and I passed it with flying colors. I did everything right. And yet my mind didn't want me to feel pride. It didn't want me to feel like I had achieved something.
Right.
And so it threatens to take that away by convincing me, right, that some kind of paranoia where they were going to turn me in for cheating because clearly I'd gone to the bathroom too many times and I must have hidden some device up in the ceiling tiles, right?
Right.
Completely nonsensical. And yet the actual feeling, the actual thought, and the way that it twists itself in the mind is it's almost tangible. It just for a second, it's that reality. And so there's always this challenge for me to have to verify what is happening in my reality. Is this actually happening?
Wow.
And so once I start to understand what that looks like and what that feels like, then I start to be able to put my thumb on when those moments occur. I can put my thumb on the nerve.
Okay. Okay.
Identifying like this is not actually happening. It is my mind trying to convince me that it's happening.
how long does that take? Like that's a skill set, right? Like, how long does it take for you to even recognize this is what's happening? What's happening? How long, like, did you, just with the LCSW, how long did it take for you to get to the place where, okay, you know what, I know, let me put my thumb right there. How long does it take you to get in that, you're going in that process? Sometimes it's just there, right? Like sometimes we're just sitting in it.
Well, but I also think that depends on how well I'm using my tools.
Okay.
So if I'm staying connected with my network, if I'm talking with, for me, I have a sponsor because I work the 12-step programs. I have kind of disconnected from my therapist for a bit. That conversation, like those conversations kind of did what they needed to do.
Right.
But I have a decision-making committee. So there are people that I speak with. There are tools that I use. I make sure that I attend my meetings. I make sure that I pray in the morning so that I stay spiritually grounded. And that helps to kind of align my thinking so that even if it goes off course, it doesn't have to go so far off course.
Right.
Mindfulness for me is huge because it allows for me to stay grounded in the present moment. And that short circuits the anxiety of what is happening, and it short circuits the depression of what has happened, and allows for me to exhibit just this moment.
Yes.
When those moments occur, I can catch them faster. I can stop them sooner. When they happen, they are less destructive. And even to the point of each of these goes back to some experience that branded itself in my memory. I remember I was working on an art project and I wound up getting glue on my contact. And so the glue on my contact activated my panic. I'm facing financial ruin because I have to pay for a new set of contacts. And I remember thinking that I would never be able to afford another bag of black socks again ever. It was so ridiculous.
Mhm.
But at the moment, it was so ridiculous that I said, "What? Oh, gotcha." And so when I think about it from the perspective of a professional sitting in the chair talking to a client, then that's it. There are these moments that are happening where their lives are out of balance, where the thinking has gone askew. And this isn't me trying to label them as being sick.
Right.
They have characteristics of the disease of addiction.
Yes. Right.
When we identify what that is, then we have an opportunity of saying, wait a second, look at this, right? Take a look at this moment right here.
Right.
Because this moment right here, and when we look at it logically, we say, oh, wait a second. Oh, and then we start to see these pieces come into play. We start to understand how this piece led to this piece, led to this piece, how it draws on our fears. So things like our lives falling out of balance. How would that apply for a client? The client comes into treatment because they're using drugs or alcohol and their lives have gone, it's become chaos, right? Chaos and destruction, snot and teeth all over.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is how do we stabilize? Once we stabilize, then what happens? We try to make up for lost time.
Right.
So we want to be able to spend all of our time with our families and make up for being absent for however long.
Exactly.
We want to overachieve at work and make up for all of this lost confidence so that our bosses will have confidence in us again.
Just hurry up and get all that
60
stuff
hours a
done.
week. Let me do it. I'm going to do the thing, right? And then I'm going to have all of these 5 goals. I'm going to be able to buy a car and have insurance. I'm going to get all of my kids back and I'm going to do all of these things in 6 months, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so then we walk into that situation where we're not aware of how to maintain boundaries. I don't know how to understand what my needs are.
Right.
I don't know how to be able to plan appropriately. Story galore. I remember leaving the recovery house on my bicycle and I had my to-do list. It had 13 things on it. And I got out there and I started bicycling around and I think I got like maybe 3 done. And I was so tired because I wasn't used to bicycling. And I bicycled back to the recovery house because I was so tired and I felt like a loser and a failure.
Because you didn't get all those 13.
Correct. And so the lesson for me was I get 3 things. That's it. And so I can't have this grandiose list. I have to keep my to-do list achievable.
Yes.
It has to be something that I can manage. And I have to recognize that it's not going to include everything. Some of those things on the list they're going to get lost, they're going to get dropped off.
But the reality is that we're trying to make up. We're trying to get to the big picture, and like what you were saying with just that client that comes in and they got all this stuff they needed, and they're going to do it in 6 months.
Mhm.
But it didn't take you 6 months to get all of that. But yet we want to condense the bringing it back together and fixing it up and making it pretty 6 months.
Fear. Fear. Because the fear is, if I don't get it back, I will lose it. If I don't get it back, my family won't trust me. I'll lose my job. And then I'll be back in the same situation that I started with. And part of the problem with that is it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
Because if I don't account for that and learn how to sit still, then I get all active and I get all flustered. And then the survival path activates and convinces me that I'm not doing enough and I need to do just a little bit more. And I don't have time to call these people, and I don't have time to double check my thinking. I've got a job to do.
Right.
Until eventually I stop doing the things that calibrate my thinking. And when I stop doing those things, then I slide off back into the addiction until eventually I wind up losing track. I wake up, I've used again. I don't know how I got there. And the challenge there is once I actually use, and I'm not talking about substituting behaviors.
Right.
I'm talking about like I actually am shooting dope or smoking crack, or I'm doing a shot or something specific,
Right.
because that reactivates the neurons up in the mind. And when that happens, all bets are off. And anything can happen. And it will take me as long as it takes me before I find myself willing to stop, because the survival path screams at me. It tells me that I'm worthless, and all of these things are all of the things that for me my recovery represents. My survival path convinces me that I am worthless, that I absolutely cannot do without these things, that I will never have that opportunity again. And so therefore, me, in my experience, I am a beggar. I beg, I plead, I abase myself. I do things that I would be ashamed of because I don't think that I'm worth anything better than that.
Jesse, I don't know if I've ever shared my lived experience is that my brother, who's 16 months older than me, absolutely love him, but has struggled with addiction for as long as I can remember, probably in our early teens. And struggle, we don't really have the, you know, big brother, little sister relationship because most of it was taken away because of the lifestyle, right? Recently, he had entered back into my life because he just falls off, comes back, falls off, comes back. And he came back and really was it felt overwhelming because I felt like he wanted to just kind of love bomb me. I'm just here. I'm here, here. Come on. I'm here. And it reminds me of the cycle that you're talking about. And I was like, oh, hold up. Like, I appreciate it, but I'm still trying to get my emotions to kind of balance out what you being here. And he kept saying, I know, I know you need time. It's going to take time. And I wanted to give him that time, but at the same time, I could not regulate my emotions enough because when I have him, I'm always prepared for him to leave. Just as I get to getting comfortable with him being around and succumbing and being that baby sister, something happens. It's a disruption. And I was really feeling bad because he was, I need you. I need to hear from you. I need to talk to you. And it just kept going back and forth. And unfortunately, it kind of went in that cycle again. And you know, what do you say to the loved ones who see this and who experience this with them, right? Like I'm there. I didn't want to think that it's gonna happen. It just happened, right? I wasn't willing. It's that difference between they're not gonna stay clean. That wasn't me. I didn't want to fight through that, but I knew the realities of what I've always seen. And I didn't want that. And I wanted to be there and I was trying my best to be there, but he was trying to get what 30, 40 years of relationship in like a 2, 3 week time span. And that's what it made me feel like. But what do you say to the loved ones that are trying to be there? And while that, loved one with lived experience is trying to play catch up, how can we say, I'm here, but maybe slow it down, slow your roll? Like, what was it that I could have done differently?
Well, let me start off by cautioning that last piece about me saying what you could have done differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you did was you kept yourself safe and you were aware of what was happening.
Right.
So that idea of him trying to compress the relationship down into this super microburst is it's difficult, right?
Mhm.
And it's pushing you outside of your comfort zone. And you responded in a way which felt like it was authentic and which felt like it was as supportive as you could be. And that's as good as it gets. So the two things that I would say to the family, number one is that you have to keep yourself emotionally safe, right? And so therefore, if it's a question of understanding where somebody's falling on the cycle, it is a cycle and it's up to them to change that cycle, but knowing that it's a cycle. And so therefore, there will be times when they surface and there will be times when they submerge. And all we can do is we can try to enjoy our time together when we
Right.
have the
Right.
opportunity. But it also doesn't mean that we can have this micro burst and kind of feed into that energy, right? The
Right.
second thing is a question of the invitation, I think. So the invitation, I'm always here, right? And so not a question of keeping that person away, but a question of when you are ready, let me know. When you are ready. And therefore, even during the times when they are submerging or when they're absent, right? It can even be a question of sending a message when you know that when we don't see somebody on a regular basis, being able to say, I still care.
Right. Right.
And that way we have a little bit of continuity between the times when we see them and the times that we don't. Right. It's very difficult for the family system to calibrate, especially when we have the question of somebody who enters and then leaves. There's an episode of Shameless where Fiona comes, right? Fiona comes back and she says to the family, like, I am mom. She's standing up and taking control, right? And the family just says no. And they go through all of their different achievements because while she was off drinking, then the family had to make do without her.
Right.
And as a result of that, our families and the different systems, they have to struggle finding equilibrium. They have to keep their lives sustainable. Someone has to keep the lights on. Someone has to keep food on the table.
Right. Right.
And so whether that's a parent figure, which means that one of the children has to kind of step into the role, or whether it's somebody who disappears from the family and then reasserts themselves, right? Is this question of how the family dynamic equalizes the pressure in order to keep things going. When we think about treatment, I think that one of the mistakes that the system makes is that it focuses on the individual. Okay, so we're going to pluck the individual out. We're going to put him in a 30-day rehab,
Right.
zhuzh him up, get right, give him a little bit of polish,
Right.
put him through the car wash.
Yes. Get them cleaned up.
Absolutely. And then bloop, pop him back. And so the system that a person operates within matters.
Yes. Yes.
When I was looking at I was doing some interviews for a paper, like maybe about 2 years ago. And one of the things that I got from interviewing some of my colleagues was the idea of an intensive outpatient program offering people the chance to solve problems in real time. And so that question of problem solving, of being able to adapt, of being able to improvise, of having an environment where they can double check.
Yes.
It's important for us to feel like we have a network of people who understand.
Yes. Yeah.
Having that network gives us the opportunity to verify our thinking, the opportunity to ask questions, look for solutions, whine and complain sometimes, right? Just a question of venting or getting something out.
Right.
but doing it with the best of intentions and with the willingness to accept the feedback.
You bring up a very good part because the point, because a lot of times when people think, oh, I'm going into, or, you have the DFS worker or the probation officer saying they're ordering them for substance abuse evaluation and follow up and all that. Their expectation a lot of times is that we're going to hit on all these areas. And my approach when I'm working with someone with lived experience and co-occurring disorders is that no, I'm going to meet them right where they are. We're going to talk about their lived experience, day in and day out. And we're going to educate from that framework of from the time they leave here to the time they come back. And I think that right there becomes our ground in which we start to, they learn from. Instead of these hypothetical, what the shoulda, coulda, did it, you could have done this different or whatever. No, we're going to talk about what it's like for you to have to now, not have a vehicle and wait for logistic care to come pick you up. And we got to, and starting over at your job or having to find another job based off of your criminal record, right? We talk about how we're staying clean right now. So I love that fact that we have to deal with them in real time rather than all of this psychoeducation. And I'm not going against psych. I think we need to educate on the drugs and all that, but I think we need to person environment says meet them right where they are. And let me take your hand and let's walk through your life together and let's talk about that experience.
So now, yes, let me add one piece to that, which is that residential treatment has a specific function.
Right.
Residential treatment gave me an opportunity to put a break between myself and my using,
right,
and the opportunity to change direction if I chose to. I went into an IOP program kicking and screaming because I thought that I had other things to do. I had other priorities, X, Y.
That whole list.
Yep. And what I found was that it begrudgingly, it gave me an opportunity to learn about myself, to be able to learn what I'm capable of, what I'm scared of, to learn what my tolerances are, or when I'm intolerant, when I am patient versus impatient, and being able to look at both sides of the spectrum. I see it as being two polarized opposites.
Right.
So depending on what it is it a question of control? Is it a question of complete and total acceptance?
Yes.
Or we land somewhere in the middle? And so that question of, I remember a friend of mine used to say, it's a hot pink zone because we have the black and the white and we drop a little hot pink in there because that's how we find our way into being okay.
Yeah.
Am I okay? No, I have no idea where I'm going to work. I'm not making enough money. There might be a bill that's due or somebody's arguing with me, blah, 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 right? Go down the list. But am I okay? Yes. Why? Because I have a purpose and I have a plan for this and this is working out and I get paid on Thursday and I can see where the problem solving stops being about me having the solution for this right now. And it starts to become part of this process. I am processing because I know I'm gonna have some money here and I can pay it here,
right.
and I'm able to keep those pieces moving. Not just a question of I pay the bill, but a question of I will be paying the bill because I've got this going and I've got that going. Okay, so I can, and these opportunities that find me, right? It's about trusting the process and being able to look for those opportunities and solutions when they provide them, when they present themselves.
So what do you say to the people? I love that. So what do you say to the people that say, oh, IOP or the 12-step meetings, there's, it's nothing but addicts there. And that's where I usually get the connects for, like, there's a, you get the excuse of why they don't want to go, right? Like, I don't want to be around people that they're still using and they generalize the whole situation, right? What do you say to those people who are just, how do we handle them? How do we treat the individuals that are resistant to IOP or to the 12-step meetings or any type of treatment that requires them to be in a group setting to kind of learn because they're missing the opportunity to learn not from others, right?
So yes, missing the opportunity, but it goes back to meeting them where they're at.
Yes.
So the phrase that comes to mind is when the pain of holding on becomes greater than the pain of letting go, we let go. So part of that is like the MI experience, the motivational interviewing experience of looking at the resistance and developing discrepancies. And well, how about like, let's look at something from a different angle, because we want to try to roll it around enough until they can look at a problem from every angle or every possible angle. I went into the IOP program kicking and screaming. Can I really expect someone else to just be like, yes, let me do that? Absolutely. I have nothing to do with 12 hours of my week. Let me go. Right? No, because we're looking at how we carve that time out. But I think, again, going back to the systemic issue is that it's about carving that time out.
Yeah.
It's about making it important. It's about making it valuable.
Right.
And allowing our people that are seeking treatment, that are actively seeking treatment, to have those allowances, to learn about themselves, to learn their reactions, to have an opportunity to make those connections, right? And at the end of the day, really, I would look at my own experience, strength, and hope, which the experiences that I have been in. Okay, so we're talking about the things that I have endured. There's the experience. The fact that I have endured them, there's my strength.
Right.
And the fact that I can use those experiences for the benefit of others is the hope.
Yes.
I've done it, so someone else can do it. We reach a hand out. We invite them to consider. We invite them. What do they see themselves doing? If it's not a question of IOP or going to the 12-step meetings, absolutely. What are you willing to do?
Right.
And we keep those doors open, right? I found it to be valuable. And of course, anything that you gave me, which was recovery oriented, I did. Because when I was willing, I was willing. And so the question of being able to kind of strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
So if somebody says they're willing, then absolutely, let's do it. And we run with it. We pick up the baton and we run with it as quickly as we can. And I know I'm mixing analogies there, so sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was willing to do whatever it was that people suggested. The challenge there was that I had to be able to keep that willingness. And I think one of the things that I see, and I think I might have mentioned this earlier, where we find out what worked for us,
right,
and then we stop doing it. Because my life gets very, very busy, and I have all of these other priorities, and I've now committed to working 60 hours a week in my job, and my family is expecting me home every single day because I've been absent for this length of time. And so now I'm spread out in a bunch of different directions. And so part of the commitment is being able to keep doing it. Whatever it is that works for me, to keep doing it,
right,
to figure out some way to keep myself grounded. When I was in the master's program, I was taking 3 classes in a semester, and I cut back on my meeting attendance because I needed to keep the papers flowing, and I needed to get the projects done and all of this stuff, right? And so did I use? No. Did my attitude change? Yes. My attitude changed. I became less tolerant. I became less willing. I became negative. And it took me a long time to rebound from that. So it's not a question of the using drugs and alcohol.
I love that. Yes.
It's the attitude.
Right.
It's my willingness to engage. Am I present? Am I showing up for my life?
Right.
And so that's one of the lessons for me, is that it showed me that there's a spectrum, there's a continuum. Too many meetings and my life falls out of balance. Not enough meetings and my life falls out of balance. And when I say meetings, I can say therapy sessions.
Right.
I can say talking with my sponsor. I can say establishing contact with people that care about me.
So what I hear you saying is that, you have to have balance, but it goes back to the ideal that addiction is more than just using. Addiction is the mindset. It's the other thoughts outside of use that really keep us in some level of bondage, or it's a continuum, right? Like even if I've stopped the use, this addictive behavior, or what we call that addictive personality, comes in so many different areas. I met people who talked about, oh yeah, my thing now is shopping, right? Now I have the money to spend and I spend it on clothes, or I spend it on food or cars or things, other things, right? But it's still that addictive way. That's addictive thinking, is just being distributed in other areas.
And so, to a certain extent, what we're talking about is harm reduction, right? Because I can say, oh, well, gee whiz, right? Shopping, I am buying things on Amazon, and therefore I'm not smoking crack behind the dumpster. Yay. But that's fine, except for the fact that it soaks up my resources, doesn't give me the money necessary to pay my bills, and eventually my life falls out of balance. Now, anything that I'm doing, any behavior that I'm relying on, I can flip that around and I can bring it back into alignment, and I can correct any damage that I've made, right? And so here's an example for you. For my 4-year anniversary, I had somebody who they made me a peanut butter pie, and I love peanut butter. Right? This is the peanut butter pie story. So she says, well, I had eaten a piece of peanut butter pie, and I said, I absolutely love it. And she said, I will make you a pie for your anniversary. And I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. And she said, you'll love it. You come on. She made me the pie. I was proud because the pie lasted in the refrigerator for 3 days. The pie lasted for 3 days. Now, I was working as peer support in a recovery house, and it was time for Easter. So I went out to the store and I was buying Easter candy for an Easter basket workshop, blah, blah, blah. And Reese eggs. Oh, those are really good. So I stashed up on a couple bags of Reese eggs. And while I was there, and I got some peanut butter ice cream. And so the next thing I know, within a short time span, I wake up for work. I've forgotten to set the alarm. I wake up and I'm covered in Reese wrappers, because it stopped being like I just wake up and I like grab 3.
Right.
And then I grab more, and then I grab more. And so I wake up in this day and I realize I'd forgotten to put the ice cream back in the freezer. I was midnight snacking on the ice cream and fell asleep. And so I sat up, and I was this disgusting mess. So within 2 weeks, it's a complete mess. And so here's the thing. That wasn't even the worst of it. Because I talked with a friend of mine that lived in the house, and I said, I need your help. I need you to help me clear this up. Like it was beyond, like I just couldn't describe the feeling. But I didn't want to tell him about the extra peanut butter ice cream that was still in the freezer. Right? And so even with that, I'm squirrely. I still want to hold on. I still want to retain something. I still want to. Right? Because the idea of giving it up is relinquishing control. It's admitting defeat. It's a failure. And so that's where, for me, I really got this indicator that it doesn't matter how long I have abstained, been clean, whatever you want to call it. And let's touch on that for a second. I will forget. If I continue on about my life and I don't have these processes that help me recalibrate my thinking, I will forget. And therefore, it's not about starting off with using, but it will end there.
Right.
It will start with me acting out. It will start with me telling my boss off, or driving recklessly, or spending money that I don't have. And these things will slowly start to gather momentum until eventually I have been fired from my job and I wrecked my car, or I've overdrawn my bank account, and it escalates and it escalates until eventually things are completely so far beyond that I don't see any point in trying to correct it. That's it. If I look at that as being the problem, then as long as I don't do anything that generates that kind of sensitivity, and that sensitivity can happen when I am upset, when I'm sick, when I'm hungry, when I'm irritated.
Too much of anything. I've always heard that, right? We've got to make sure we stay at that balance.
Yes.
You brought up something. We talked a couple of days ago, and you brought up something that really resonated with me, and that's the word addict.
Yes.
And here I'm on this quest of these words. I want to get rid of the words, and I want to humanize, want to humanize this. I want to give people back to humanity. But you're like, no, I am. Like you own that word.
Put the word on a spectrum in between labeling and compartmentalizing and stereotyping, and the characteristics that are involved with which are part of my life. And so when we look at it, particularly for someone who is trying to fight those characteristics, right?
Right.
Our goal is to be able to organize and to categorize so that I can understand. When I understand something, that means I have a level of control. That means I understand it.
Right.
And so therefore I can navigate.
Right.
The question of understanding the characteristics is because I'm an addict. I'm a recovering addict. I'm a recovering addict. And if I don't keep these processes in my mind sufficient, and it doesn't mean I don't have to obsess over it. I don't have to do something 24 hours a day.
Right.
I have to recognize it enough to make sure that I'm on good point.
And it sounds like to me, you know the parts. It's just like anything else of getting up, brushing your teeth, taking a shower. These are the things that I need in my life on a daily basis to keep me at a decent balance,
Yes.
right? So that I can keep things together.
When your refrigerator's empty, what do you do?
I go to the store.
There you go, right?
Yep.
And it's not this big deal. It's not like, oh my God, I've got to go to Walmart. No, it's just like, I have to go to the store. And so we go to the store. And so when your car is out of gas, what do you do?
We go to the gas station.
It's a routine.
Yeah.
It's a part of the routine. And as a result of going to the gas station just often enough, and especially when the little light is blinking, then you haven't run out of gas in a long time.
Right.
Bingo.
This is your maintenance.
Yes. And I can read the dashboard signals that indicate when my spiritual light is blinking, when my radiator is starting to burn hot, and that means that I need to get myself out of the picture. Maybe something is causing me distress. Maybe I'm agitated. Maybe I'm over emotional. I was talking with a client who I care about very, very deeply, and she just touches my heart. And she is paralyzed with fear, and that's her part of the journey. And so, being a therapist and looking at that and having empathy and understanding is that I have empathy, but I can't prompt. I can't force.
Right.
I have to be able to allow their journey to be their journey. People prompted me on my journey, but I wasn't ready till I was ready.
Right.
But when I was ready, there were people that were there ready to pick me up, scoop me up, put me in the car. They arranged for my stay in rehab. Rehab gave me all the tools that I needed. And then afterwards, I followed the journey.
Right. But I mean, could you say that prompting sometimes is just letting you know it's just a marker of I'm there? I think of the marathon runner they're running the marathon on their own, but every now and then we've got somebody, if you need water, or if you or you might have I'm running along with you on the side, just hey, I'm here, right? Like I think prompts are always good as long as we recognize it's just prompts. Because when I'm ready to get that water, when I'm ready to say I'm done, right? I'm going to be there. I just know somebody's going to be there. But I'm going to stop when I stop.
And that's the invitation. You asked about family, right? That's the invitation, is that we are riding alongside in our golf carts. And we are waiting for them to eventually say, I can't run the marathon anymore. And they stop. And when they do, we wheel our golf cart right over there. And we are there and present, and we will figure out what needs to happen next to the best of our ability. And if we don't have those resources, then it's important for the system to have those resources available so that families can act when they're ready.
Right. Amazing. Thank you. Number one, thank you for coming. Thank you for this opportunity. I could just listen to you. Seriously, I can listen to you all day. But as we wrap up, what would be something that you would want to give to anyone who's listening about people with lived experiences about the whole ideal of stigma, shame, and guilt, or just the journey for individuals who are still out there trying to get to a place? What would speak to someone, just what would you say? What will be your final remarks to people that might be listening? What would you like to say?
So I would be primary purpose, right? Which
Mhm.
is to help the still second suffering. So
Yes.
what I would say is that the greatest gift that my recovery has given me is that I don't ever have to feel that feeling again. I don't ever have to feel less than. I don't ever have to feel stupid. I don't ever have to feel ashamed of myself. Never. Now, there might be a situation that comes up where I feel something which is kind of sort of close.
Right.
There might be a situation that has me teetering on the edge.
But that's where you talked about earlier how we our mind will go there. But if we have that village, we have that support system that we can share these experiences with, right?
And because as long as I stay connected, then I don't ever have to teeter and fall off that brink,
Mm.
down the cliff, and down into that spot where I was at before. Never again. And that is something that I hold absolutely true to my heart.
So and I'm sorry, I'm always doing this, but my take on what I hear is that re- recovery requires a community. It requires a village, and a lot of times we want to try to do this on our own. The reality is that we can't. We're not this island. The longer that we stay this continue, but if we can just embrace the village and find that village, right? That
Mhm.
healthy village that provides that support. And it could be more than one, right? It could be this group over here, this group over here. They can look different, right?
Yeah,
But we can't keep thinking we're gonna do this by ourselves.
correct. I think part of my challenge was that I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel like I knew what was going on in my life. And so there was a lot of confusion, particularly in the first 2 years. I got a lot of feedback. I got a lot of suggestions. A lot of people had a lot of things to say.
Right.
But that was where I learned. I had to learn because it was about having to figure out how to rethink a situation, my responses, what part I played, what my response is going to be, and then also the way that the feeling is going to distort that response, or it's going to try to distort
Yes.
that response. So I think of it like watching a hurricane on the Weather Channel. So when we are in our emotions, right? We are the reporter on the beach. The reporter always has to have the yardstick trying to show how bad the waves are
Right.
as the trees are falling down and the houses are flying
Right.
past, right?
Right.
But when we're also watching the hurricane on the Weather Channel, we see the newsroom and we see the meteorologist with her pointer stick pointing out where the storm is going to make landfall. What is its category? When is it clear? Right? The facts.
Yeah.
And so my decision making committee looks at the meteorological picture of what's going on in my life. And they're saying, batten down the hatches and get yourself safe. And I have to put the yardstick down and stop trying to measure the waves and show how bad the storm is
And discover safe.
and go to safety and stay there until I get the all clear. Because I can't see through the emotions taking place in my life, but they can.
Right. So that requires trust.
Yes. Yes.
I would love because I could keep going there because then the question then becomes trust is a big thing that we've got to start to trust people in this process. I gotta give you one more minute. Go ahead. Tell me about how do people start trusting when
Well,
they because are you trusting yourself? I mean, especially at a space where you may not be trusting yourself. How do you trust that person?
I think that's
So,
part of it is that I have to figure out what it means to not trust myself until I can trust myself. But I don't know what it means to not trust myself because I don't believe that anyone else can do it.
yeah.
Right. That's part of my like I put on my Superman cape and I go in and I save the day. Right.
Right.
Out of my way. Right. Let me. So part of the trust was that I had to get broken enough to the point where I just couldn't. right? I couldn't figure it out. And part of me was a little bit upset when I looked at some of these other ways that I might have been able to acquire the ways and means to get more, but I was just out of options. And so for me, the trust is now that I've made the decision to not use and do something different, then I'm committed to that. And I have to not reverse that commitment. Next is that when there is somebody who speaks sense or gives me a suggestion, how does that apply? For me, it's the magical rule of threes. If I try doing something and I can't do it, and I try it again and I can't do it, and I ask someone or I read the directions and I can't do it, that's the third time. That means that I really need to be doing something else.
Right.
And come back and do that again later.
Okay.
So little ways for me to be able to frame my understanding of when to act and when to sit.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. And I appreciate this. Dr. Jesse Talion.
Dr. Jesse Talion.
Hey y'all, it's Teray again. Now you've heard the conversation. Now we want to hear from you. Take a moment to click the link in the description to our post survey so you can share what stood out to you, what challenged you, and what inspired you. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember that one conversation can spark a new beginning. Bye.